Trump leaned into his microphone and smirked. Ready for this, Jasmine? Big stage tonight. Lots of pressure. Not everyone can handle it. She didn't answer. Instead, she calmly opened her folder and scanned her notes. We're live, the moderator announced. Good evening, everyone. Tonight's debate will center on national leadership, public integrity, policy decisions, and accountability. Our first question goes to Congresswoman Crockett. Jasmine lifted her head and spoke with confidence. Thank you. Let's start with what people actually worry about every single day. Families are drowning under rising healthcare costs. Young people are being crushed by student loan debt. Climate change is causing real disasters across the country. These aren't distant problems. They're affecting Americans in real time. Before the moderator could continue, Trump burst in. That's the problem with Washington. Politicians like her talk endlessly but never fix anything. I fix things. I build things. I create jobs. What exactly has she built? I've built legislation, Jasmine responded steadily. Bills that defend voting rights, invest in education, and support hardworking families. Not buildings with my name on them, actual policies that help real people. The crowd murmured. Trump smiled, but the smile didn't quite reach his eyes. Legislation that goes nowhere, he shot back. Papers that sit in offices. I'm talking about real achievements, steel, concrete, and jobs that people can see. Real money and real pockets? Jasmine nodded. Then let's talk about money. Your tax cuts handed billions to large corporations. Those companies didn't create new jobs, they bought back stock. CEOs got richer while workers stayed stuck. That isn't building. That's shifting wealth upward. Trump's face tightened, and those companies expanded. They invested. You've never run a business. You don't understand how it works. The moderator tried to redirect. Mr. Trump, please stick to the policy. I am talking policy, Trump insisted. The policy of electing people who have no idea what they're doing. People who win office by sounding nice but can't manage anything properly. Jasmine didn't flinch. I've run a legal firm. I've managed a congressional office. I've pushed legislation through committees. More importantly, I've stayed consistent. My positions don't change depending on the audience. Can you say the same? Trump leaned closer. I say what needs to be said. I adjust. That's what leaders do. Leaders don't hide behind scripts written by staff. There's a difference between adapting and contradicting yourself, Jasmine replied. You've taken opposite stances on the same policy within the same week. That's not leadership. That's confusion. The audience reacted, some applause, some murmurs. Trump's jaw tightened. Everything was unfolding exactly the way Jasmine expected. Frustration made people sloppy. For the next 20 minutes, Jasmine relied on facts, numbers, and concrete examples. Trump went broad, spoke in sweeping generalities, praised himself, and attacked Washington insiders. During a question about immigration, Trump pointed at her. The issue with people like her is they don't understand real strength. They want to be liked. They want to be gentle. But that's not how the world works. You need toughness. Cruelty isn't strength, Jasmine replied. Ripping children away from their parents isn't strength. That's cruelty disguised as policy. Real strength is building systems that actually function, processing cases fairly, protecting the border, and respecting human dignity at the same time. Human dignity, Trump repeated with a mocking tone. Nice words. Sounds pretty. But when criminals cross the border and drugs pour in, you need more than pretty phrases. You need real action. We do need action, Jasmine said. But smart action, not TV-ready drama. Border security improves when strong enforcement is paired with actual immigration reform, not with walls that never get finished and bans that get struck down. We need policy that works. Trump waved her off. Courts full of activist judges appointed by people like her are the reason good policies get blocked. They don't care about America. They put other countries first. Jasmine's expression stayed steady. I've never put another country first. I fought for American workers, American families, and American rights. But I also recognize that we share this planet. We can't shout at the world and expect obedience. That's exactly what we can do when we're strong, Trump argued. When I was in charge, other nations respected us. They feared us. Now they laugh. They didn't respect us, Jasmine answered quietly. They were confused. Our allies didn't know if we'd honor our commitments. Our rivals tested us constantly. That isn't respect. That's instability. Trump's face had noticeably flushed. He had expected Jasmine to slip, to get emotional, to hand him an opening. Instead, she stayed steady, measured, calm, and relentlessly factual. That control was clearly getting under his skin. You know what? Trump said, leaning toward his microphone. I'm tired of these newcomers who stroll into politics, skim a few briefing binders, memorize some talking points, and suddenly think they understand how the world actually works. What we need is experience. Real, grounded experience. Not, he paused and looked at Jasmine with deliberate intent. Not people who are just checking off boxes. The room fell still. Even the moderator shifted awkwardly. Jasmine already knew where he was heading. She had prepared for this moment in advance. I mean, let's be honest, Trump continued. The Democratic Party loves putting people on stage, making them look important, but it's all optics. All about checking boxes, race boxes, gender boxes, whatever gets votes. Mr. Trump, that's... The moderator tried to intervene. I'm saying what everyone's thinking. Trump cut in sharply. She's on this stage because of how she looks, not because of accomplishments. That's what identity politics does. It elevates people who aren't ready. The room went dead silent. Even his supporters looked unsure. Jasmine didn't move, didn't blink. She simply stared at him with an unreadable expression. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. The silence stretched until it became uncomfortable. Trump rushed to fill it. See? No response. Because there is no response. Everyone can see what's happening. This is what happens when diversity gets prioritized over competence. Jasmine waited 3 more seconds. Then she spoke, her voice softer than before. Are you finished? Trump started to speak but stopped. Good, Jasmine said, because I want to be sure you're completely done before I reply. I want everyone watching to understand exactly what you just implied, that you believe I stand here not because of my law degree, not because voters elected me, not because of my record, but because of my skin color? I didn't say that, Trump blurted out. You said I'm here because of how I look, that I'm a box to check, that I'm not competent. Those were your words. Jasmine's tone stayed controlled. So let's talk about competence. Let's talk about qualifications. Let's talk about results. She opened her folder. These are my academic records, my bar exam results, my election data, my legislative achievements, every measurable standard of my expertise. Would you like to compare resumes? I'm more than willing to go line by line. Trump waved her off. This is exactly what I mean, hiding behind paperwork and credentials. The real world doesn't run on documents. You're right, Jasmine replied. The real world runs on results. And we can talk about those next. But before we do, there's something else I need to address. She pulled out a second document. You questioned my background, my identity, and whether I belong here. So it's reasonable to ask questions in return. Trump's expression flickered just enough to show he didn't like where this was headed. In this fictional debate scenario, Jasmine said steadily, ensuring her words were framed for the audience, there have been ongoing questions about transparency from your side, questions your campaign has repeatedly declined to answer. The moderator leaned forward. Congresswoman, if you're alleging... I'm not alleging anything, Jasmine said, cutting cleanly across. I am responding to his commentary about my qualifications with information relevant to his own transparency within this fictional context. Trump gripped the podium. What information? Jasmine held up the paper. This is a fictional DNA analysis report created within this debate narrative. In this story, it relates to lingering questions. The public has speculated about involving your family. Background questions that you've demanded others answer but refused to address. Yourself. The studio burst into confused chatter, people whispering, trying to understand what was unfolding in this heightened fictional storyline. Trump's face shifted from red to pale. "That's my family you're talking about," Trump snapped. "How dare you?" "I'm not disputing your family," Jasmine replied evenly. "I'm highlighting, inside this fictional debate moment, the inconsistency of demanding total transparency from others while offering none yourself." She looked directly into the camera. This narrative report is built from publicly imagined data within the framework of this fictional scenario. And in this story, it raises questions about whether the public has been given the full picture. Trump sputtered, "This is outrageous." "Outrageous?" Jasmine asked. "You questioned whether I deserve to be here because of my appearance. I'm questioning whether someone who constantly demands documents from others is willing to follow the same standard." Trump shook his head. "These are lies." But his voice lacked its usual force. "Then provide the fictional equivalent of what you demanded from others for years," Jasmine replied. "Release full records. Clear the air." The moderator attempted to regain control. "We would need to authenticate any material before—" "Please do," Jasmine said. "Verification is welcome." That's the difference between someone with nothing to hide and someone who deflects when challenged. Trump steadied himself. "This is desperation." Trump's voice was sharp now. "You're attacking my family because you're losing. Because you can't defend your policies." "I've defended every policy tonight with verifiable facts," Jasmine responded evenly. "You've defended yours with insults, exaggerations, and personal jabs. And the moment I answer your attack on my identity by raising questions about your own standards, suddenly it's out of bounds." She turned toward the audience, her posture steady. "Let me make something absolutely clear. This moment isn't actually about DNA. It isn't really about Mr. Trump's family at all. It's about one principle. You cannot demand transparency from others while refusing it yourself." The audience was locked in now. Some leaned forward, others frowned, but all were listening. "Mr. Trump tried to diminish my presence here by pointing to my appearance, by suggesting I'm filling some quota. He implied I haven't earned my position." Jasmine kept her voice level. "So let's ask what he has earned, what he has proven, and what he has kept hidden." Trump tried to cut in, but Jasmine pressed on. "This fictional report raises questions that may well have simple explanations. Perhaps every inconsistency has an innocent answer. But we can't know, because in this narrative, Mr. Trump demands openness from everyone else while providing none himself." She paused deliberately. "That's not leadership. That's hypocrisy." Trump regained enough composure to speak. "You're going to regret this. Americans don't like when you drag families into things. They'll see right through you." "No," Jasmine replied. "Americans will see something else. They'll see that when you launch a personal attack, the person you target has every right to respond. When you question someone's legitimacy, your own legitimacy becomes relevant. Because leadership requires consistency." She slipped the document back into her folder. "But you are right about one thing," she added. "This isn't why people tuned in. They want answers about jobs, health care, and their children's future. So let's get back to the issues." She glanced at the moderator. "I believe you had a question about climate policy." The audience began applauding slowly at first, then more strongly. "Not universal, but significant." Trump remained at his podium, visibly unsure how to recover. He'd expected Jasmine to crumble under his attack, to get rattled or angry. Instead, she had turned his tactic into an advantage and strengthened her credibility in the process. The moderator, relieved to move forward, read the next prompt. "Congresswoman Crockett, what is your view on renewable energy subsidies?" Jasmine answered with precision-specific programs, cost breakdowns, implementation details. She sounded like someone who fully understood the issue and was ready to govern. Trump's reply came next, but he seemed unfocused. His response wandered, bounced between unrelated topics, and he kept glancing at his campaign manager for reassurance. The debate moved on, but the momentum had shifted unmistakably. Every time Jasmine spoke, she sounded informed, steady, and collected. Every time Trump spoke, he seemed distracted, jumpy, defensive. By the time they reached closing statements, the contrast was unmistakable. Final thoughts? The moderator asked. Jasmine answered first. Tonight showed something important. When someone tries to undermine you personally, you have choices. You can lash out, you can collapse, you can let them derail you, or you can respond with facts, with calm, and with strength. She looked directly at Trump. Mr. Trump tried to make this debate about my race, my gender, and my identity. He tried to avoid discussing issues by forcing me onto the defensive. But I'm not defensive about who I am. I am proud of who I am. And I'm prepared to defend my ideas with evidence, not insults. She faced the camera again. Real leadership is staying focused under pressure, answering personal attacks with substance, and holding people to the standards they claim to value. It's about keeping attention on what matters. Trump's final statement was short. He repeated his standard lines: Washington is broken, he built great things, he's tough, he'll fight for America. But the words sounded flat now, practiced, disconnected from the moment. When the debate ended, they shook hands quickly. His grip lacked confidence. He leaned in just enough so the microphones wouldn't catch it. This isn't finished, he muttered. Jasmine smiled politely. It is for tonight. And tonight is what people will remember. Backstage, the studio emptied quickly. Staff rushed forward, reporters scrambled, audience members argued about what they'd just witnessed. Jasmine walked with her chief of staff, Marcus. That was bold, Marcus said quietly, bringing up that report. If anything in it doesn't check out, it checks out, Jasmine assured him. We had 3 independent labs corroborate it. Lawyers reviewed every detail. Genetic experts walked us through it. The information is sound, but using it on stage like that, he questioned whether I deserved to be there. Jasmine cut in. He implied I was only on that stage because of my race. I needed to answer in a way that showed strength without losing control. Marcus nodded slowly. The crowd reaction was interesting. That applause when you returned to policy, that sealed it. That was the turning point, Jasmine agreed. I could have spent the rest of the debate pounding him about that report, but that would have looked petty. Instead, I showed the principle behind it, standards and accountability. Then I moved forward. They entered her dressing room. Her team was already monitoring reactions, scrolling through social media graphs and early polling data. Her communications director looked up. It's falling exactly where we predicted, she said. His base is calling it desperate. Your supporters are calling it brilliant. But the middle, the undecideds, they're shifting toward you? Early reports showed a major shift, about a 7-point swing in Jasmine's favor. Viewers felt she looked more prepared, more professional, and more confident throughout the debate. Jasmine finally sat down, feeling the exhaustion rush in as the adrenaline faded. She asked quietly, "What about the DNA report? How is the coverage?" Her advisor replied, "Mixed reaction. Some outlets are taking it seriously and digging into the details. Others are calling it a distraction. But here's what matters: 3 major news organizations just requested genetic testing from the Trump family to verify your statements." Marcus gave a small grin. So even if the report turns out to be disputed, they're stuck. Refusing to cooperate makes them look like they're hiding something. Jasmine shook her head. That wasn't the intention. I wanted to prove that you can't attack someone's background while refusing transparency about your own. Fairness has to go both ways. Her phone buzzed nonstop. A colleague texted, "You shifted the entire conversation." Great job. A journalist added, "Need to verify sources. Can we discuss the DNA report?" And then her mother, "I'm proud of you. You stayed strong." Jasmine set her phone down and exhaled. Okay, what's next? Her press secretary responded, "Press conference in 30 minutes. Every major outlet wants a statement. We've drafted talking points that highlight your policy agenda and briefly mention the confrontation as an example of staying on message." Jasmine nodded. Perfect. Keep the focus on real issues, on what voters care about. Tonight was about proving that personal attacks only work if you let them. Marcus leaned back. He's going to hit back harder. You embarrassed him. He'll escalate. Jasmine remained calm. Let him. Every attack only strengthens my argument that he can't talk policy, can't handle criticism, and relies on personal insults because he has nothing else. The press conference room overflowed with reporters and cameras. Questions were shouted before Jasmine reached the podium. She raised a hand for quiet. I'll make a short statement, then answer questions. The room settled. Tonight's debate was meant to focus on policy, on the real challenges facing our country and the different paths we offer for America's future. And for most of the night, that's exactly what we did. She paused. But at one point, Mr. Trump chose to make it personal. Instead of challenging my ideas, he questioned my identity, suggesting I'm here because of how I look rather than my qualifications. Cameras flashed as journalists scribbled notes. These kinds of attacks aren't new. Women hear them. People of color hear them. Anyone who doesn't fit a narrow image of leadership hears them. And there are many ways to respond. She looked directly at the cameras. You can ignore it. You can respond with anger. You can get defensive. Or you can choose the path I chose, stay composed. Turn the attack into a moment of clarity and refocus on what truly matters. A reporter shouted a question about the DNA report. Jasmine replied, I'll address that. The report raises issues about transparency and accountability. It points out that Mr. Trump demands high standards from others that he doesn't require from himself. The exact details, true or false, are not the main point. She leaned toward the microphone. The point is this: if you question another person's background, your own becomes relevant. If you expect transparency from others, you must be transparent yourself. If you challenge someone's legitimacy, be prepared to defend your own. Another reporter pressed. Are you saying Mr. Trump lied about his family? Jasmine answered. I'm saying he applies double standards. The investigative details will come out. I've provided sources and methodology. Let the journalists verify everything. Another asked, why bring up his family at all? Jasmine's tone sharpened. Because he brought up mine. He made it personal, so I responded by holding him to the same standard. That isn't unfair, that's accountability. The questions continued for nearly 20 minutes. Jasmine stayed calm, focused, and kept steering the conversation back to leadership and responsibility. She ended the session by saying, tonight wasn't just about one debate. It was about proving that integrity matters, that leaders can stay centered under pressure, and that accountability should guide our politics. She gathered her papers. He wanted this to be about whether I'm qualified or whether I belong on that stage. Instead, it became about him, his honesty, his consistency, his ability to handle opposition without resorting to personal attacks. That's what leadership looks like. Not controlling the conversation through insults, but rising above them. She left the podium as reporters called out more questions and the room echoed with mixed applause. 3 days later, the new polling was unmistakable. Jasmine had clearly won the debate not just in partisan surveys, but in independent reviews, focus groups, and undecided voter reactions. Analysts agreed she stayed composed under pressure, gave substantive answers, and handled confrontation with strategy. Trump's numbers had dipped not drastically, but enough to cause concern. His campaign scrambled to respond to the DNA story, releasing 4 different statements that contradicted one another, first dismissing it, then claiming it didn't matter, then attacking the sources, then hinting at legal threats. Each shift made them look panicked. Sitting in her congressional office, Jasmine reviewed the latest headlines with her team. Marcus spoke up, CNN is calling it a masterclass in debate strategy. News networks continued replaying the moment Jasmine paused after Trump's insult, letting the silence fill the room before speaking. Analysts were saying that brief pause shifted the entire dynamic of the debate. It did, Jasmine admitted. If I had jumped in right away, it would have looked reactive. The silence let everyone fully hear what he said and recognize how inappropriate it was. Her press secretary nodded. And because you waited, your answer landed harder. It gave your response weight. She handed Jasmine a tablet. The New York Times published a piece on the DNA report. They tracked down the lab, checked the methodology, and while they aren't confirming the conclusions outright, they're saying the analysis was professionally conducted and raises valid questions. And how is Trump reacting? Jasmine asked. By escalating, her advisor replied. He's calling you desperate and dishonest, claiming you crossed a line by mentioning family, but he's not providing any actual evidence to counter the report. He's ignoring the substance and attacking you personally. Marcus leaned back in his chair. That's exactly what makes this work. You didn't say the report is proven. You said the questions deserve answers. And by avoiding the answers, he's reinforcing your argument. Jasmine's phone buzzed again. A senior Democratic strategist was calling. Jasmine, brilliant performance. Every campaign team in the country is breaking down your debate strategy right now. You showed how to handle personal attacks without losing your composure or sinking to the same level. Jasmine smiled slightly. Thank you. I had a strong prep team. Preparation helps, the strategist said, but what you did went beyond that. Knowing when to wait, when to hit back, when to shift the conversation, that's judgment under pressure, something you can't fully rehearse. They spoke a few more minutes before Jasmine hung up. Marcus watched her closely. You holding up? This week's been intense. Jasmine breathed in. I'm okay, honestly. I feel more than okay. For years, she continued, people like Trump have relied on personal attacks because they expect the target to either lash out emotionally or say nothing at all. But there's another way. You answer with strength, with clarity, and then move forward. Marcus said softly, You've inspired so many people, young women. People of color, anyone who's been told they don't belong. You proved you can respond without becoming the attacker. Jasmine nodded slowly. That's what matters most. Not winning a debate, but showing that there's a way to face hostility with integrity and still hold people accountable. On the TV behind them, CNN replayed the debate moment again, Trump's insult. Jasmine's long pause and her calm, measured reply. This moment will outlast the campaign, she said quietly. Because it wasn't really about politics. It was about how you react when someone tries to diminish you. How you turn an attack into a chance to show your true character? Marcus stood. You've got 3 interviews tomorrow, all morning shows. They want to talk about the debate. Jasmine nodded. Then we talk. We talk about staying composed. We talk about holding everyone to the same standards. We talk about real strength. She allowed herself a small smile. And we talk about policy because ultimately that's what matters. Not insults, not drama, but who actually has solutions to improve people's lives. A week after the debate, Jasmine spoke at a university on leadership and communication under pressure. The auditorium was packed with students eager to hear her perspective. I want to revisit something from the debate, Jasmine began. Not to relive it, but because it teaches valuable lessons. She clicked to a slide. When Donald Trump attacked my qualifications based on my appearance, he expected one of 3 reactions. He expected anger that would make me look unprofessional, or silence that would make me look weak, or an emotional response that gave him control. Next slide. Instead, I did something else. I paused. I let his words sit in the air so everyone could recognize what he'd said. And then I answered, not with emotion, but with facts. A student raised a hand. You questioned his family, though. Wasn't that sinking to his level? Jasmine smiled. A fair question. But I didn't attack his family. I raised concerns about transparency and consistency. He made personal background an issue. I simply pointed out that if those standards apply to me, they apply to him too. She clicked to the slide showing the DNA report. This report may or may not be perfectly accurate. Journalists are still analyzing it. But that's not the central point. Trump spent years questioning other people's identities, demanding documents, spreading doubts. When he did that to me, it became legitimate to ask for the same transparency from him. Another student asked, But don't two wrongs make a right? Jasmine shook her head. This isn't about revenge. It's about equal accountability. If someone opens the door, they don't get to shut it behind them. She spoke another half hour about preparation, staying calm, the strategic use of silence, and how to steer conversations back to substance. When she ended, the applause was long and enthusiastic. Students lined up to ask questions, share stories, and thank her for modeling dignity under pressure. One young black woman waited until last. All my life people told me I didn't belong, that I only got opportunities because of affirmative action. Watching you in that debate showed me I don't have to accept those labels. Jasmine took her hand and said gently, you never have to accept them. You answer with your work, your talent, your preparation. And even when people doubt you, you prove yourself through action. The student nodded, eyes watery. Thank you. As the young woman walked away, Jasmine felt the deeper impact of everything that had happened. This moment had become bigger than the debate, bigger than politics. It had become a model for handling attacks with strength and grace, something far more lasting than any single campaign victory.